I hope everyone's having a great time. Special thanks to LucidWorks for pulling us all together at Activate 2019. Really appreciate it. Just in case you haven't figured out all the different ways to connect, I figured I'd throw that up again real quick so that everybody could see it. A little bit about myself. I'm Dennis Chaney. I'm Director of Global Product Management at LexisNexis. I won't read the whole bio. We don't need to do that. You can look it up online if you're interested. But I've been in the technology and architecture and product space for over 25 years. And I still love doing it. I come in every day and I enjoy what I'm doing. So it's exciting for me. What we're going to cover today, a little bit about the rule of law, what that means for LexisNexis, business value of search, why are we doing anything around search, and then some of the efforts that we've been working on in scaling, as well as an integrated effort, what we've been doing working with other teams and trying to evolve this out. And then what we're doing around innovation, different areas that we've been innovating and trying to find different ways of doing what we do normally. So at LexisNexis, one of our core principles is advancing the rule of law. We do this, we're working in over 130 countries around the globe, and we're very quick and able to get assistance out there. So that's one of our core values. Being able to do that means that we're able to move forward fairly rapidly. But it's a vast amount of content. We've got 60,000 trusted legal news, business, and public records sources. It equates to about 81 billion documents that we have to process and run through the system. It's extremely fun trying to weave our way through that. In the program that we're working on with the migration right now, we focused in on the news segment. That's about 2 billion documents, and it's growing somewhere between 6 and 10% a year, just in sheer number of documents. The breadth of news is increasing every day, so it makes it even more challenging for us along the way. As we encounter these issues, we've got to come up with better, newer methods of handling search around that space, and we've been working with a Solr migration to do this. And we'll get into some of the areas that we've been working on that. Reveal the meaning and act upon it. So as we migrate the underlying engine, we have an opportunity to unwind years worth of technology that's been built. It's just been layered and layered and layered. We've found some areas where there's functionality that has been undone by other functionality and then redone by other functionality. And as we work through, we're trying to unwind all of that so that we have the appropriate levels and controls in place. All the decisions that we're making, though, are based on the data that we're receiving from the logging systems that we have in place today, as good or as bad as they are. We're looking at what our customer queries are and how those are structured, what the frequency of distributions are in that space. Our customers count on deep legal expertise, being able to tie all of this content together, being able to search it and surface it up so that they can make the right legal decisions for their customers and their clients. Providing rapid access to this data is part of the key initiatives that we're working on the search replatforming team. We're trying to move this forward at a very rapid pace. We've had some very good successes, and we're continually getting challenged to do even more. So, conduct your search the way you want to. Anybody who's done any type of work in search realizes that's a very loaded statement. Providing the customers with any method that they want to be able to search can be problematic. We do it fairly well, but we're trying to unwind all the different nuances while maintaining our relevance and recall as we do this. The team's been focused primarily in the Boolean space, working through. We've been collecting statistics and data around that for probably the full year we've been working through that. This has been a very interesting and fun way to dive into what we need to migrate and move. And then, as always, our customers are finding new ways to search themselves. They're working with online providers. They're browsing through Google, Bing, etc., and they're learning how different systems work. We have to adapt and work through that. The biggest expectations are coming with the fact that they want us to be as fast. They want us to provide as much content as they're seeing in Google and other areas, but doing it with the relevancy and recall that is out there. It's, again, an interesting space. Some of my colleagues that are here presenting in other areas, they've been working very closely in this space. So as we look at what do we need to do to scale search, we need to utilize the data that's underlying our applications. We need to look at our customer data. We need to look at the personas that are out there. Our underlying vision is really about increasing search performance so that we can scale and we can move faster, innovate faster, and provide our customers with better results, provide the business units with the ability to be able to innovate and accelerate on top of the platform that we're establishing. We've got some basic goals that we've set out to work with. Build a best-in-class search experience for our customers. The only way we can do this is by migrating to Solr. Deliver a dramatically faster search performance experience. So how do we get our customers the data they want quicker and faster, but have the same relevance and recall? Enable a much faster path to delivery. Right now, our delivery cycles are slow and tied down from a lot of testing and processing. We're looking at how to modify those pathways so that we can move quicker and release more functionality more often and get it into the hands of the customer so they can test it through A/B tests. We're doing several dark launches along the way so that we can collect more and more data around that. As I said, the approach, we're looking at moving to a modern open source search engine. We're going with Solr for that endeavor. We're implementing an architecture that's looking at sub-second response time. This has provided a whole host of opportunities for us as we start looking at the data and metrics that we have collected around what the browser speeds are, what the app speeds are. Trying to achieve sub-second for 2 billion documents in a single search is going to be an interesting opportunity for us. We're up to it. We're seeing some great results around it. And hopefully next year we'll be able to start talking about how successful we were with that as we move into other areas. Our continuous deployment. We're looking at a higher quality, higher frequency, faster A/B testing and experimentation. The way we're accomplishing this is we're adopting different development practices. We're using XP practices. We're in a pair programming mode. We're moving with test-driven development so that we're standing everything up front with what is the test for success. How do we look at this differently so that we can move more rapidly? Some of the other areas that we've been working on have also been in decomposing the feature functionality. So The graphics here are a little hard to read, but we've been collecting statistics on what our users are querying, the types of queries that they're running, breaking them down into different segments so that we can see. So we've been evaluating the size of the queries, the types of terms and connectors that they've been using in that space, trying to find the Rosetta Stone to be able to work through and provide the best search results possible. We've actually found that we've had fields that haven't been queried in the past 3 years. So that actually enabled us to defer some of that development. So it's been an interesting space. How we do this and how we move faster is we had to be able to get content ingested in a rapid fashion. We had to be able to index it rapidly. The team is currently working, this architectural diagram is actually showing our prospective loads for essentially slow running, but it scales out just as well for dealing with the back file. We're able to currently ingest, I want to say it was 32,000 documents a minute. So we're hitting some pretty good scale. But when we're talking about having to load 2 billion records and be able to re-index that at will, we need to be very fast. The target the team's shooting for is to be able to index the entire corpus of news within a day. So it's pretty aggressive from the breadth and depth of data that we have, but they're stepping up to that challenge. Right now we're at about 4 days. Our current production systems are running about 17 days. So we've been moving it forward very rapidly. And right now, all indications are it's just a matter of cost as to how far we can scale on the width for loading. So, and as we get into some of the costs, as we experimented and moved forward on this, we looked at doing the work with lambdas. That's where we started. And it scaled relatively well, not as great as we wanted it to, but we needed to be able to do more for less money. So we looked at utilizing Spark for the processing. And when we did that, we were able to hit that sweet spot with the large loads. Now, it also saved money in the end, at the end of the day. So we went from 150,000 docs per dollar to 750,000 docs per dollar. That equates to pretty significant savings if you're looking to have to re-index over multiple times over the year. We're still working on a variety of models based on data-driven so that we can take and look at it and say, can we merge these indexes together? It's really an evaluation process that we have to go through. Is there a way that we can have versioning within the index, control that through a variety of switches, or are we better off to do a blue-green switch? But the team's looking into that. So this was not done alone. It's an integrated effort. We've been working with our partners from ThoughtWorks and Open Source Connection. They've been helping us along the pathway. We've got internal teams that we're working with on this, where we're trying to adopt the DevOps Elite status for all new development. So we're working closely with our platform engineering team. We have another team that's dealing with the search test framework. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but it's all of those groups working together. And we have multiple applications and other platforms that we have to be able to support. This is just hitting the surface of it, but as you can see, there's quite a bit that we're interfacing with, and we're right in the middle of that entire mix trying to deal with it. The data lake integration, we have a repository where all of our curated content is stored, and we need to pull that out and be able to work with that. The platform engineering I already mentioned. Human relevance testing, how do we get better feedback from our customers and subject matter experts and work through that and be able to test that and integrate that as part of our development processes. So as this flows through, this is our continuous integration and deployment pipeline. And along this entire pathway, we're running all of these functional tests every single time where the code's built and deployed. So we're checking this continuously. We're collecting data, statistics. We're making sure that our relevancy hasn't changed. We've seen in our current production systems where what was thought to be a benign change would adversely affect relevance. We're detecting that earlier so that we know where the problem points are, and we're able to look at the specific line of code that was changed or the specific module that was introduced before it hits production release. And we are looking to get into production hopefully in the next week or two. I mentioned innovation. Innovation's one of the areas that the migration is going to help us. We need to be able to move faster. We need to be able to test more often. We need to be able to get experiments in front of our customers in a more rapid fashion. There are many ways that we can do that by being able to move at a more rapid pace with our development processes. The other areas are taking and looking at some of the innovative approaches that we have to be able to do work. The search test framework is a prime example. That was designed initially for a place for a developer to go in, look at a user interface and be able to see the differences on their results and marry that all together. We've worked with that team extensively to integrate that and come up with an API method so that we could integrate that into our pipelines and be able to test that every single time. The next slide will actually show some of what we're doing for measuring the relevance. So we're looking at the precision, the recall, ranking. We're looking at the Jacquard and doc counts to see where the sweet spot is, be able to monitor what the differences are along the pathway. We're able to look at minor changes in an automated fashion so that we can make sure that we're not adversely affecting our customers. We're still working out how do we integrate that when we have a relevance algorithm change that we expect. So as the developers are working through it, what do they expect to see? So we're working on that. How do we change the metrics and say, yes, this change, even though it is a difference from what's in production today, is the right change. Another area that we're working in is with our managed stack. We're able to take today, and this was an innovative idea that came out of the search replatforming team, where they were able to actually step back and look at it and say, we're going to enable our developers to run a production-like instance on test data and be able to load that in any environment that they need to. They can scale that test data up, they can change the test data. We've actually set up a Parquet file set environment where it will kick off the Spark ingestion. It will fetch the records from the data lake and put those documents wherever the developer needs them to be so that they can actually run their tests. The developer is now fully integrated with the search test framework and able to start making relevance changes immediately. They're able to see those changes and be able to articulate that. One of the other side benefits that we've seen from this, from the managed stack, is we now have the ability to look at a particular field, and as we add that field in, detect what the cost is going to be, not just from a performance aspect of the code that's executing, but from a dollar perspective of how big is the index going to get. And we're able to then plan for that deployment rather than being surprised as it's rolling into production and we run out of space. Some of the other innovative areas that we've been working in, we have actually had some huge successes in dealing with the Kubernetes space, being able to scale that very rapidly, both in the Solr environment and within the content ingestion, so that we're able to flex up and down as necessary. A lot of this is still collecting data. We're still working through what the best practices are, best methods for dealing with this are. But spinning out from all the innovative practices that we have, LexisNexis was voted 2019 best workplace for innovators. Not sure how we ranked best because it was a whole list of people that came in, but we are in the list of the best workplaces. If you're interested, you can follow the hashtag, etc. We are hiring. We're always looking for search engineers, relevance engineers, anybody that's involved in the search space. This is just the boilerplate for what we are. I mean, it's a great organization. The culture in Raleigh is amazing. I really enjoy it a lot. Like to thank all the service providers and tool providers. I've only got a few of them up here. I'm short on many of them, I'm sure. But I really appreciate the support and help that they've given us, the tools that we're getting in the different spaces. I should have put Twistlock up there as our latest one for Kubernetes security. But with that, I'd like to thank you for having me, open up for any questions that anybody might have. This was really just a journey through our migration process so far. We're still in our infancy and we're moving through. So, yes.
Oh, sorry, yeah. So Lexis Advance is one of several similar platforms at Lexis. So the one I'm thinking of in particular is Lexis Diligence and Lexis Risk Management are the ones I have experience with. In terms of the underlying search technology, particularly with Diligence, given the overlap, they may not be legal research products, but the use case is very similar. So in that regard, are you working together to share the underlying tech that you're migrating to, and if so, are there any issues that you've encountered with that?
The answer is yes. We will eventually get there. It will take us time. We chose the U.S. Lexis Advanced marketplace to start with because one, the share. And then we focused in on the news content set because of the volume of data that's there. But the eventual goal is to build out the right size architecture based on Solr. Yes?
Doesn't Lexis Advance use very particular syntax? Very much like Westlaw?
Yes, it does.
And that's not Solr syntax at all?
We've actually spent a lot of time over the past year working through the syntax. We developed, and keep me honest, Doug, we looked at some of the Solr syntax and we could get about 65%, 70% there. Okay. So we went ahead and developed our own plugin to be able to go closer to Lucene and drive out the native indexes that way. And we're hitting about 97, 98% of the syntax today.
Nice, because I spend a lot of time matching your syntax to Solr. So it's kind of an entertaining back and forth, actually.
Yeah, it's been a great journey for the team. They've learned a lot. We're now in the stage where we're taking the complexity of the queries. So we're looking at, we have some queries that are coming in about 32,000 characters in length. They're extremely complex, and they provide some nuances, especially as you start looking at the relevance and recall because of the order of operations that are occurring, subtle differences when you're dealing with proximities, et cetera. Nested proximities are a really interesting space.
Yeah, and especially since like Solr isn't pure Boolean. Well, Solr is not pure Boolean or logical truth. So.
Correct.
And that becomes a little bit tricky. I'm going to be curious to see how it compares to like your results based on your old engine versus this one.
So far, they're very promising. I mean,
Nice.
We're in the tuning stage. The team is working on recall and precision right now. The true relevance ranking is coming out. News in general, though, provides a very interesting problem because of how dynamic it is. What was relevant yesterday will not be relevant tomorrow, so it's providing some interesting testing constraints for us.
Nice, thanks.
Yes?
I have a couple of questions, one from the ingest point of view and one maybe from a query point of view.
Okay.
So what actions did you take which helped you drive down the 17-day backfill time? I would call it backfill, like ingestion of data, to 4 days.
So,
and then what actions are you looking for to drive it down towards the 1-day mark that you all?
So the extended time is on the existing platform. There are a variety of constraints that control that. We have to be able to, because of the way the current platform's architected, we cannot ingest as rapidly as we would like to. It will adversely affect our customers' experience. So that's where some of that timing is coming through. I don't even know if we've actually tried to do a full news reindex in the space in recent years. As far as the work that we've done to get it faster, what we've looked at is methods of parallelization to be able to run the content through the system faster. So we've scaled extremely wide, utilizing our Kubernetes and our ingestion processes so that we can load as many documents as possible. And that was one of the learnings that we got from the Lambda space, and we tried to carry some of that forward as we built out. And with the Spark, we were able to hit even more. Our first Spark implementation, we actually ran into some issues, not from the large volumes, it was the small volumes. So spinning up Spark in Kubernetes was giving us latency issues, and we had to overcome that, and the teams worked through that very well.
Okay, and from a query point of view, you mentioned two things. One is relevancy, and one is the quickness maybe of the results coming
yes.
back. You addressed a lot of relevancy, but do you have any sense of how your legacy search system versus the one based on Solr, how fast this queries perform, especially like the same ones or maybe similar ones?
So right now we're seeing roughly twice the performance improvement. So we're 2 times faster than the current system. That is extrapolated data, and we have not done any real tuning in Solr at this point in time. So we're looking at, I believe within the next week to 2 weeks, we'll be standing up a full production instance and be able to start moving the levers to see how fast we can get Solr. Our goal is actually to hit under 300 milliseconds for the full return on any query. We use a percentile base, so at our P90 level.
and I saw a pie chart of different types of queries.
Yes.
So are a particular set of queries more problematic than the others, or it's a general sense that you got at this point?
So we have not been able to do some of the experimentation around that to date because of getting the environment set up. We will be doing some of it. In the current system, we're constrained by other issues that are occurring. So when you start looking at the patterns, it doesn't make sense. So you see a single term search that returns very fast most of the time, and it's taking forever. And that's sort of why we're doing some of the re-architecting to find out where those bottlenecks are and why they exist, and eliminating them when possible. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Since you're a product leader, from a product perspective, what would you say? And you spoke to this early on to an extent. But what would you say are the kinds of things that your users, and keeping in mind that they're attorneys, paralegals, and the like, are not willing to put up with when it comes to search, either from a UX perspective or even a UI perspective?
Okay, you just jumped way out of my space. I appreciate the question. I would defer to others on that. Sure. I'm actually, as the product owner, I'm the product owner for the platform itself. We interface up, and we have the business unit product owners that are responsible for the customer.
Unfortunately, I have to deal with all of it. So I kind of envy you on that front. Although yours is much bigger than mine. Thanks, so.
Could you talk a bit more about why the Lambda costs were almost 7 times higher than the Spark-based approach?
Sure, it had to do with the volume of data that we were working with and spinning up for each of the individual sets. With the Spark, we were able to parallelize more than we were with the Lambda. So, and that was driving, I think it was on the slide, but it was driving your compute costs were going higher with each Lambda instance. So it just, yeah, the mushrooming effect. And then when you start throwing that volume of data at it, it really mushrooms quickly.
Are you using Python as an underlying code set?
There is Python in some areas. I have not stayed up to date on everything that they're using. I do know Python's there. I do know Scala is in there. I think they've got some F# in there. So it's whatever the right tool is to solve the problem. We're not putting constraints on and saying you have to do it within this boundary, because that's how we got into some of the problems that we have today. Well, I really appreciate the time that you've given up so that I could present to you. Thank you very much. And enjoy the rest of your day.